following program is rated TV MALV. It contains strong language and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
The war between USA and China 2025. A prominent military general believes that a war with China is possible by the year 2025.
A four-star U.S. Air Force general has warned of a possibility of a direct war between the United States and China, most likely on the issue of Taiwan. And he says that this could happen as early as 2025. And to this end, he's now urged his commanders to push their units to achieve maximum operational battle readiness. An internal memorandum over this issue, in fact, emerged on social media, and this, interestingly, was later confirmed to be genuine by the Pentagon. In the memorandum, the head of the U.S. Air Mobility Command, General Mike Minihan, has said that the main goal should, in fact, be to deter and, if required, to defeat China. Minihan said that he hopes that he's, in fact, wrong, but he also added that his gut feeling says that the United States may have to fight a war with China by as early as 2025. Now, General Minihan reasoned his arguments on this. Taiwan has presidential elections next year. This would offer the Chinese President Xi Jinping an excuse for military aggression. And during this time, the United States would be most likely distracted by its own contest for the White House. Now, General Minihan hence has said that Xi's team, reason and opportunity are all aligned for a possible conflict in the year 2025. The senior U.S. officials have said in recent months that China appears to be speeding up its time frame for seizing control of Taiwan. Now, China staged major military exercises in August last year, seen as a trial run for an invasion after a defiant visit of a solidarity to Taipei by the then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Why is this important? Well, the obvious is clear. Many people will die. What's the scenario that would lead up to this war and possibly World War III? As we stated in the video news clip, Taiwan is the center of all the contention. Taiwan, Republic of China, who claims independence from China, is strategically and militarily positioned along with Japan for the USA. However, China, People's Republic of China, denies those claims and continues to threaten Taiwan militarily. Even unto this day, is Taiwan a member of the United Nations and or NATO? No. A country must be recognized by all 5 permanent members of the Council: Russia, the United States, France, the United Kingdom, and China, which uses its position to block any attempt by Taiwan to ascend to full member status. Which leads us to this point and beyond. China, as you are well aware, is a military and economical giant and loves to flex its muscles. Their goal? To replace America's status as number 1, militarily and economically, and also remove any strongholds they believe America has. Here's one such scenario.
Tonight, the drumbeat of war. Taiwan says 28 Chinese warplanes, including fighter jets and nuclear-capable bombers, crossed into its airspace. As the tension between Taiwan and China is growing, and top military analysts warn that an invasion could cost many American lives. Oren Lieberman has this report you'll see first out front.
Taiwan is perhaps the most sensitive flashpoint between the U.S. and China. Some experts warning that Beijing's use of force to claim what it sees as its rightful territory is drawing closer. Chairman Xi Jinping has made it a priority for Beijing, which hasn't ruled out the use of force, a decision that could cost thousands of lives for China, Taiwan, and America. A war game from the Center for Strategic and International Studies begins with a Chinese missile barrage against Taiwan's military in 2026, destroying much of its air force and navy, followed by an amphibious invasion across the Taiwan Strait. Taiwanese forces fight back using advanced U.S. weaponry, Patriot missiles for air defense, anti-ship missiles and torpedoes for sea defense, and its ground forces to defend the beachheads.
Whatever the Taiwanese are going to fight the war with, they have to have that when the war begins.
In every scenario, China landed forces on Taiwan, but only in the most pessimistic cases does Beijing avoid defeat. But victory for the U.S. and Taiwan comes at a great cost. The war game assesses that the U.S. loses 10 to 20 combat ships, including 2 aircraft carriers, and 200 to 400 military aircraft. In 3 weeks of fighting, the U.S. suffers more than 3,000 troops killed in action. That's about half of what the U.S. suffered in Iraq and Afghanistan over 2 decades. America's global position is damaged for years. China loses 90% of its amphibious fleet and 52 major surface warships, and its Air Force loses more than 160 combat aircraft. Crucial to this outcome is the stockpile of precision-guided munitions. Taiwan would need more U.S.-supplied Harpoon anti-ship missiles, which may be in short supply because these missiles have been sent to Ukraine. The U.S. needs its own long-range anti-ship missiles, and this supply is one of the big risks.
It runs out within typically the first couple of days, and when that runs out, then the United States has to use shorter-range munitions. Those can be effective, but it increases losses and increases risk.
China has the world's largest navy with about 340 ships and submarines compared to nearly 300 for the U.S. China's army has 1 million active duty service members, and it's the 3rd largest air force in the world. The top U.S. general says the key to avoiding conflict is deterrence.
As long as we remain number one, then we will deter the war that people worry about, a great power war between China and the United States.
Crucially, this war game does not ask the question of what would happen to make China decide to use military force to invade Taiwan. That remains an open question, especially given the united reaction of the West to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has crippled Russia's economy. Would China run the same risk, or would it use its industrial and economic power to control Taiwan instead of its military? And that, Aaron, is a critical question.
But what is also interesting is this. The United States is demonstrating its military might in China's backyard, the South China Sea. Seahawk helicopters and Hornet jets have roared on and off the flight deck of the U.S. aircraft carrier Nimitz. And our next report gets you more details.
A demonstration of U.S. military power in some of the world's most hotly contested waters as dozens of combat planes and helicopters roar on and off the flight deck of the U.S. aircraft carrier Nimitz. The Nimitz is leading a carrier strike group that entered the South China Sea 2 weeks ago. Its presence riles China, which claims historic jurisdiction over almost the entire South China Sea and sees the exercises as provocations in its backyard. Petty Officer Joel Guillen.
I mean, for the most part, it's no different than any other deployment I've been on. We're just here to move aircraft, make sure it's done safely, make sure people don't get hurt, make sure that we can operate, and send the aircraft up the flight deck, do what they got to do.
The group's commander, Rear Admiral Christopher Sweeney, said it was part of a U.S. commitment to uphold freedom of passage in the waters and the airspace of a region vital to global trade. Beijing has been conducting regular exercises too, and maintains a large presence of coast guards and fishing vessels far off its mainland, a source of frequent tension with its neighbors. In early January, a guided missile destroyer that is part of the same strike group as the Nimitz angered China by sailing through the sensitive Taiwan Strait. That came 2 weeks after a Chinese Navy fighter jet caused alarm by coming within 10 feet of a U.S. Air Force plane over the South China Sea. The U.S. presence in the South China Sea, a conduit for nearly $3.5 trillion worth of annual trade, has been welcomed by allies like Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Australia.
Chinese buyers have become interested in farmland in Japan, and policymakers in the country are uncomfortable with this. According to Nikkei Asia, the Japanese government was aware of the sale of land in Hokkaido to an unnamed firm with financial links to China. The land is around 35 kilometers, or 21 miles, from a Japanese Air Self-Defense Force radar site. Policy chief of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, Sanae Takaichi, mentioned the transaction in a January meeting, asking if it were a national security issue. In an op-ed published on Nikkei Asia in September, 2 active duty officers in the U.S. military, Ryan Ashley and Alec Rice, viewed Hokkaido as a center of great power rivalry historically. They believe the country's northernmost island has the potential to again demonstrate its critical importance in the Pacific. According to them, China has long regarded Hokkaido as the crown jewel of the North Pacific island chain, and China has spent decades consolidating its economic dominance in the region. In July, a committee of the Cabinet Office hosted an expert hearing on land use near facilities considered essential to national security. Without specifying any particular nation, an expert warned that it is only natural for foreign militaries to try and learn more about their adversaries' capabilities. The expert said, "In contingencies, there is a possibility that the aim switches to sabotage, especially regarding nuclear plants. Buyers of Japanese land also include those from Hong Kong, Macau, Australia, Singapore, and the US. The US has also been alarmed about Chinese farmland purchases in critically strategic areas. On the surface, China has spent a decade expanding its sources of agricultural products across borders. The increased land acquisition also tallies Beijing's emphasis on food security since the pandemic broke out. That purpose alone already made US lawmakers uneasy. This month, GOP nominee Katie Britt said, "I am a big believer that food security is national security. It is mind-boggling that we are allowing the Chinese to buy up American farmland." Britt said between 2010 and 2020, China expanded ownership of American farmland from 13,000 to 350,000 acres. In South Dakota, some of those are especially close to military bases. Fufeng Group, a Chinese agricultural corporation, has acquired 370 acres, or 150 hectares, of land near Grand Forks, North Dakota. The piece of land is just 20 kilometers from the base of the U.S. Air Force, which houses some of the most advanced drones. The project has been put on hold while the Federal Interagency Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States undertakes a national security review.
The U.S. Navy has now found parts of that Chinese spy balloon off the East Coast, and now the Pentagon is revealing how it tracked it across the country. A U.S. Navy team recovering pieces of the balloon off the coast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We have learned tonight an unmanned underwater vehicle is now examining the wreckage for explosives. U.S. authorities suspect there could have been explosives as a way for the balloon to self-destruct. Here's our Chief Global Affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, again tonight.
Tonight, these new images of the Navy fishing China's deflated spy balloon from the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. They come as we learn fresh details of the Pentagon's efforts to track the airship as it crossed the United States, enlisting the military's famed U-2 spy plane. We have seen firsthand the power of these jets. They can fly higher than 70,000 feet. So high, the pilots must wear pressure suits like astronauts. The U-2s tailed the balloon, photographing it up close until it was shot down off the South Carolina coast. The massive recovery effort now underway. Unmanned underwater vehicles seeking out wreckage from the balloon's huge technology bay, the size of 3 buses. Those vehicles also searching for possible explosives. A senior U.S. official tells me the balloon had a self-destruct capability. As the U.S. collects debris and with it information, China today declaring the airship does not belong to the United States, but to China. The Biden administration making it clear they're not getting it back.
Do you intend to return the debris to China at some point in the future, or under international law, are you able to keep it?
I know of no such intention or plans to return it.
And so let's bring in Martha Raddatz back with us tonight. And Martha, you've learned that in addition to these underwater drones that are now hard at work looking for potential explosives, there are now reinforcements coming?
Reinforcements in a crane. They're bringing a huge crane. They have now located what they believe is the payload, the most important part of this balloon, on the seafloor. So that crane will go down there, look for it. There will be divers down there, and they hope to bring it up quickly and piece it together, David.
And of course, we don't know if the president will bring up this balloon, but surely China will be on the agenda later tonight for the State of the Union, and I'll see you right here for that. Thank you, Mark.
Today, we're in the strongest position in decades to compete with China or anyone else in the world. Anyone else in the world. And I'm committed. I'm committed to work with China where we can advance American interests and benefit the world. But make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did.
Beijing is already firing back by threatening repercussions, saying the shoot-down is a serious violation of international practice. There you have it, brothers and sisters in the body of Christ. Remember, they're not predicting the return of Jesus Christ, but the possibility of war within the next few years. Now, we know that Christ is in full control and has already told us the end of the story. However, it's what's in between that will affect us all. And that means that the church will go through wars and rumors of wars. And history has already proven that. Keep in mind that within the last century, many American Christians died from the battle of war. There is no guarantee that you won't die in the next one. With that being said, there are more than a few schools of thoughts concerning America and biblical eschatology. Where is she, and what happened to her? Two likely answers. Number one, she, like Rome, imploded from within. Civil war, religion, and decadence. Number two, crippled from either military and/or economic defeat and disaster. This is just one more reason to make sure your election and calling is from God, and that you do the work of an evangelist while it is yet day. Especially now that night begins to fall, and the possibility and reality of war with a capable foe is knocking at the front door. This is not sensationalism or fear-mongering. It's the reality of the Bible and the threats made by two superpowers. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Thank you for watching, and may God both bless and keep you safe.